how you characterize Biden's administration and the cabinet, it is one of the most diverse, however, is it not?
I don't,
the irony of it?
I don't personally, at this point in time, see any special merit in the fact that a cabinet is diverse, in your terms, which by that you mean by the standard of identity politics. Do I think it marks a huge, even a not huge, forget about huge, even a modest gain that Kamala Harris is our vice president, a black woman? Okay, maybe she's a lesbian too, so, and let's say maybe she's transitioning to being a man, who knows. So let's say she were not just a black woman, lesbian, transitioning to a man. Would that mark, in my opinion, a huge advance in our political life or social life? My answer is no. I don't see it. I don't see it. We have to, barriers have been broken. There are lots of members now in the ruling elite who are black. There are lots of members who are women. That hurdle has been overcome, and now it's time to focus on the substance. What are they saying? What are they offering? At this point in time, the most likely candidate, the Democratic side, so far, obviously it's very early, is Pete Buttigieg. And he's just trying to pull an Obama. The first gay man as president. Do you believe that's going to make a big change in our country if he's elected?
I think that would be, I don't know his politics.
Don't you think you should know his politics?
Just the idea though is, a huge shift, I would say.
What
Definitely.
shift?
Well, the homosexuality
so
aspect.
What?
Well, that does...
if he's still a tool of the ruling class.
Oh, got you. Yeah, you know what? Many people would actually say the homosexual agenda, whatnot, is a tool of Shaitan, etc. Say, all right, we're there.
Shaitan?
Yeah, Shaitan, Satan, Satan, etc., etc.
Where did you come up with Shaitan?
Shaitan, that's like the Arabic word for,
Oh, for Satan?
Yeah,
I was not aware of that.
Shaitan. All right, anyways, most of your chapter on Obama deals with U.S. domestic politics. If we look specifically, I mean, go ahead. You got.
No, I'm asking. Do you? Let's say the new Secretary of Defense were the son of King Abdullah in Jordan. Oh, his son became an American citizen, and then he was named Secretary of Defense. Do you think that would represent a big advance?
Oh, yeah, I think
why is that an advance?
Just people's perception. Well, behind the scenes, sure, no. It's same old facade, just a different color, different tone, different background, nationality. Yeah, sure. I think sentimentally, though, inspirationally, for people who don't maybe see that deeply, kind of gives a morale boost in a certain sense, the way Obama did for others. And I mean, that's something to account for. It's not very... It is real and tangible, I would say, on the micro level, but not on the substantive level of actual... I mean, it could be that too, once on the micro level, things can also branch off and create certain nuances and changes. Insofar as people don't actually sober up and identify exactly what's going on and who people really are and what their intentions are, though, then yeah, like you say, radical change requires radical action in that sense. And so, yeah, it'll still be a civil war of sorts to make.
Do you care? Let's say an Arab is elected president, an Arab American. Do you care?
I mean, who else would be that Arab American president but yours truly? So of course I would care. Come on, man. Alright, anyways, I got your point. What else? Anything else you want to say?
No, but would you care?
It'd be interesting, but to me it would be the same.
Why is it interesting? There are 15 Arab heads of state right now in the Middle East. They're all crooks.
Yeah.
So now you think it's going to be better if we have one more crook in the United States?
Who votes? Right, voting here in the U.S. is much different than in the Middle East. different government types, etc. So the thought that an Arab American would become president in and of itself, after we had Trump in office as of recent, right? I mean, that accounts for some sort of gasp of, oh, what the hell is going on? You know, what do you think? You don't think so?
No.
So what does that say then? What are you saying
No.
exactly? You're
Okay,
saying that the
no.
voting process itself is
I'm
corruptible in
I'm
a sense?
saying
or-
that it's a good thing for our country that among young people, your age cohort, the polls showed in 2020 that across the board, every ethnic group, every racial group, every religious group, every sex orientation, Bernie Sanders got about 80% of the support during the Democratic primary among that age cohort, your age cohort. He's white, he's male, he's old as the hills,
Yes.
he's completely unhip, and it's a credit to your generation that even though they've been deluged with all of this identity politics crap, they didn't fall for it. They listened to what the candidates said, what they promised, what was their track record. They looked at those things, and guess what? They went for the septuagenarian Jewish white male from Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is what ought to be happening. They're looking at the substance. So when I hear you say you care about the diversity of the Biden administration, it tells me that you're out of tune.
I didn't say I care. I just included that in the posing of the question itself as an interesting, thought. That's it. I wanted to get your opinion on, despite what you said. Oh, diversity. What do you make of that? But continue. So yes, sir. Go. Yes, sir.
No, I've said what I had to say. That I
Okay.
just don't think that's a. There was a time when you wanted to see minorities to break the barriers to get in, but that's already happened. It's passé. It's happened. We've had a black president. We now have a black vice president. We've had women in all positions of power except for president. We've had every imaginable permutation and combination across the board in power. So that's over. That's been there, done that. And now let's focus on the substance.
Without Obama having been president, do you think Bernie Sanders would have caught this much momentum among the people who, very similarly, were the ones who had voted and were riled up in enthusiasm for Obama when Obama hit the scene? In a sense, Obama kind of helped Bernie Sanders propel himself to, such...
There is an argument there.
Yeah.
The argument I would say is this, that the Obama campaign and then the Obama presidency was very educative to the American people. It told them that identity politics isn't going to get you anything, that you have to vote for substance. So after the Obama presidency, people start to look for something else. They no longer were looking for a hip black guy.
Got you. So it helped inversely, the inverse.
Yeah, it demonstrated the Obama phenomenon, demonstrated the utter bankruptcy and hollowness of identity politics. And then the next person to grip the imagination of the young people in particular was a very unhip, old white man. And I think to some extent, the fact that Obama, by his person, exploded all the hopes and expectations of identity politics, then it opened up the way for Bernie.
Gotcha.
I think Pete Buttigieg doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. If you think you're going to pull off another Obama, this time it's going to be your sexual orientation and not your race, you're barking up the wrong tree. People don't care about that anymore. They want to hear the substance. And that was a good result of Obama, that he dispelled all the myths of identity politics.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. Good job. All right. A reappearing theme in the book is that of the cult. As you described it, Kendi is the guru of a cult. Obama is surrounded by a cult of personality. And the BDS movement protesting Israel, you also see as a cult. Elsewhere, you've spoken about your own past history as a member of the Maoist cults. What kind of differences and similarities do you see between the Maoist cults you yourself were a part of and the various cult-like behavior you discuss in the book? Do you think your personal background made you aware of aspects here that others might miss?
Well, that's a complicated question. It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but it's a complicated one.
Okay.
What is a cult? You know, people always say, why do you call BDS a cult? Why do you call that a cult? There are certain characteristics of a cult. The first one, you know, is blind blind obedience to the great leader. You know, the cults always have the great leader, and you blindly obey the great leader. Then there's the insularity of a cult. It's very closed off, and it has its slogans, it has its terminology, and it doesn't have any content. There's no intellectual content there. There's no real research, no real study, no real analysis. It's all built on sloganeering, radical posturing, posing, and preening. This holier than thou attitude, like we're better, we're superior. The whole Obama, he became, in my generation, if you wanted to show you were hip, you were cool, you loved jazz. You went to jazz clubs that showed you were really hip. And Obama became the substitute, the surrogate for jazz in your generation. You loved Obama. It was all just this kind of theater in order to show how superior you were. So when you see cult, and of course the other part of a cult, of which I've been several times a victim, is it casts out any dissenters. If you dare say, well, I'm not sure if the great leader is quite as great as you claim he is, then you're immediately exiled from the cult. The difference, in my opinion, is between my cult and the current cults is the following. We were Maoists, okay? We wanted to change the world. We had a very concrete idea. I'm not saying our tactics and strategy. We had a very concrete idea of what we want to change. So among the things we wanted to change was we want working people to have power. We wanted a fair distribution of wealth. We wanted human relations between people to be more humane. We wanted to lift the wretched of the earth, the poor, the sufferers. We wanted to lift all of them. We were on the side of, as Frantz Fanon put it, we were on the side of the wretched of the earth. So I would say that even though our tactics, our strategy, our approach is kind of crazy, totally divorced from the reality of our country, our system, our history, and so forth. I would say our goals, our objectives, they were noble, they were decent. We were animated by, on the whole, we were animated by very positive aspirations. The current identity politics is making a world more congenial to pronouns, a meaningful goal or objective, is making a cult out of trans people, using them and exploiting them to show how beautiful you are. Is that a substantive, meaningful objective or goal? I find the goals, the objectives, they're so self-absorbed. It's all about showing the world how beautiful you are. We didn't do that back then. You know what I used to do? I worked for a newspaper called The Guardian. It was a Maoist newspaper, okay? You know how much we made a week? I mean, you won't believe it. This was the 1970s. I made $55 a week. You hear me? $55 a week. Believe me, even back then, that wasn't near a non-living wage. Forget about near a living wage. That wasn't even near a non-living. Do you know what we were expected to do in our off hours when we weren't working? We were expected to go on picket lines. I walked the picket lines for the United Farm Workers. That was a Chicano people who were organizing to get a union, the United Farm Workers, UFW. So on Friday nights, I would go to a liquor store. It was called Flatbush Liquors. And the liquor stores carried Gallo wine. And Gallo wine was, from the vineyards where the farm workers worked, okay? So we were organizing boycotts of the liquor stores where they were sold, all right? So Friday nights, when you're going out carousing, drinking, clubbing, smoking, I would go to Flatbush Liquors on a picket line with fellow Maoists, and we would chant things like, Flatbush Liquors, we say no, scab gallows got to go. Scab means they brought in non-union workers to pick the grapes for the wine, okay? So a scab, you know what a scab is? A scab is the term that union people may use for non-union workers who are brought in to do the work because the union is on strike. So a scab worker, you get that, right? Somebody who crosses the picket line. And so Flatbush Liquors, we say no, scab gallows gotta go. Okay, we were helping the Farm Workers Union, in this case the UFW, and it was I have no reservations now about saying that was a good thing to do. We were trying to enable Mexican-American workers, Chicano workers, to organize a union. Nowadays, what's considered radical? Posting your pronouns online. That's considered radical, posting your pronouns online. So I refuse, I will admit, mine was a cult. We had our great leader, Chairman Mao. We had our local leaders here. We called everyone who disagreed with us, we called them a bourgeois or a petty bourgeois. We cast out anybody who was disagreed with us. I'll admit to all of that. I have no problem with saying it. But I don't think that the objectives were the same. We really were concerned about the real world right now it's just pure narcissism. It's navel-gazing. It's not politics. It's navel-gazing. I can't tell you how it just fills me with disgust to see what's happening, you know.
Where does this lead to? All of this that you're describing, navel gazing, etc. When will the people realize that, you know, this was very much insubstantial?
Insubstantial. It's a good question. I don't know. I feel like right now you could see that there's a real reaction has set in to the cancel culture. People are starting to mock it. People are getting sick of it. You know, you take the case of my classes. I started teaching again about 3 years ago. Modestly, I don't have a position, but every semester I get hired here or there. I teach at a city university of New York, which is mostly immigrant kids, working class kids, of every possible race, religion, ethnic orientation.
That's good, yeah. That's
so they're pretty representative of the 85%. They're very tolerant. They're very mutually supportive. But I'll tell you, in 3 years, I've only had one student, who emailed me his pronouns. That was it. There's no interest in it. It's like, it's a very elite phenomenon. It's not, the broad mass of people have no interest whatsoever in this stuff. So, I think it contaminates a thin tier who unfortunately have a lot of money, a lot of power, like the Ramallah NGOs. But among people young people in general, you can correct me. Look, you're not here to just ask me questions. I'm talking about your generation. So you live with 3 roommates. Would you say the roommates are fairly representative of young people?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So their income is more or less what young people are making nowadays. They're at the same stage in life as most young people. Would you say they're concerned about pronouns?
To be honest, I don't know them well enough. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't imagine so. If it doesn't affect one's daily life and daily aspirations towards where they want to go per se, unless they do themselves identify as,
but even if they identify as this or that, it's just a fact. I happen to like guys, this or that, but it's not like an obsession. It's just a fact. People are very tolerant of each other, young people nowadays, remarkably so if you compare it with my generation. But it's not all-encompassing. It's like,
it's not used
I
as
still
a
need a job, I still would like to get my own place, I still would like to, I still am struggling with health care, I'm still paying my student loans. So I think it's a very narrow tier of people who are obsessing over these things. So when you ask me when is it going to pass, for about 90% of young people, it was never there in the first place. It didn't affect them. And you know where it affects people? In the elite universities. In the elite universities, they begin seminar class. Each person, you go around the room, tells the class what are his or her pronouns. But that doesn't happen where I teach.